there, fellow patriots. Welcome back to our channel, and today we're going to be going through a really hot topic that's been in the news for the past couple of days now regarding illegal immigration, right? It's a hot topic for decades, to be quite honest with you, as far back as I can remember. But let's get into the new details that are emerging just over the past couple of days. So since the Biden administration has taken over, right, a flood of illegal immigrants has overwhelmed our internal systems, right? Border states have been invaded with no signs of slowing down. We've got, some reports show that we've got up to 2 million illegal aliens have crossed since the beginning of this year alone. And realistically, the policies are not changing. They're not getting any better. The Biden administration really did a number on our country by inviting illegal immigrants essentially into our country during the presidential elections, right? And this stems way back before that, right? We can see the shift, the political shift, and the stance that the Democrats took after Trump declared his nomination back in like 2015, 2016, something like that, right? And he basically took a really firm stance on illegal immigration. So obviously, naturally, to combat that, the Democrats had to backtrack on everything that they've said publicly for the past several years. And we've shown that in previous episodes. If I'm not mistaken, in our very first episode, we showed the videos of each prominent Democrat in the past showing their stance on illegal immigration and how they were against it, how they were for some type of border barrier, right, of some kind, and they were all unanimously saying that illegal immigration was bad. And obviously post-Obama, from Obama's second term going forward, suddenly they shifted and they changed, and even more so when Trump came into office. Now, the interesting part is that the White House refuses to acknowledge any of this, right? At times they've encouraged it and refused to even acknowledge the crisis. But we'll get into the details, right, as we go along. So the first thing let's cover, let's talk about how this pretty much got started, right? As mentioned before, the Biden administration, Biden specifically on the campaign trail, really did a number and essentially invited illegal immigrants. He basically said that, listen, we should have a flood of immigrants. Now, here's the interesting part. Before I go any further, I really want to make this very clear. The left loves to convolute different types of words. And when it comes to immigration, they love to do that, right? I want to make it very clear. We're not talking about immigration. When the right does not talk about immigration, we're pretty much almost all immigrants, unless you're Native American, right? But the immigrants that we're talking about is the legal immigrants. That is what we on the right are talking about when we're talking about immigration. We want legal immigration. What the right doesn't want is illegal immigration. Why? Because everybody here has to follow the laws. So why should somebody who's not from our country, someone who's not a citizen, be exempt from following any type of law? We don't have that luxury as American citizens to pick and choose what laws we want. So why should anybody else? Now, that being said, the left loves to convolute, right? Notice how they use the word immigrant to make it seem like the right is racist against brown people, right? Because that's the narrative. No, it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with legal status. We could have, the day of tomorrow, a flood of migrants coming from Canada, and they could be white Canadians. And you know what? Our position will still be the same. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin or their ethnic background. It has to do with the legal status. So let's go ahead and get into our very first video.
During the presidential campaign, he promised to relocate migrants throughout the U.S. In fact, he announced that America has room for millions and millions of illegal migrants. Watch this.
We could afford to take in a heartbeat another 2 million people. The idea that a country of 330 million people cannot absorb people who are in desperate need and who are justifiably fleeing oppression is absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, it's bizarre. You're a bigot if you're not into it.
The Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you is, if an individual is living in the United States of America without documents and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
depending if they committed a major crime. They should be deported. And the president was left in his... President Obama, I think, did a heck of a job. To compare him to what this guy's doing is absolutely, I find, close to immoral. But the fact is that, look, we should not be locking people up. We should be making sure we change the circumstance, as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to absorb them, keep them safe until they can be heard.
A 15-second, if you could, if you wish to answer. Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with them.
So there you have it. So we can see here in the first video how this is again the campaign. We've got the debates within the Democrats, and pretty much Democrats were all singing the same song throughout the entire time, right? None of them had a different position on illegal immigration, right? It's open borders, let everybody in. Everybody's an asylum seeker. See, again, they're going to use certain words, asylum seeker, right? And they've pretty much got it down to, well, your government's corrupt, so I guess you're seeking asylum, so we can let you in, right? Listen, we're not responsible for everybody else's government. There's a lot of bad governments. Our own government is corrupt, to be quite honest with you. And so why does that automatically give you a key in to get into the country, right? Since when are we supposed to be, I don't know, saviors of the entire planet? We can only do so much. There has to be order. There has to be a legal, legitimate process. We cannot have an open border because we don't know who's going through it. We don't know if they're drug dealers. We don't know if they're rapists. We don't know if they're crooks, thieves, criminals, whatever, right? But the left doesn't care about that. Why? Why doesn't the left care about that? We've already speculated on that. It's because, right, it's no secret, a large portion of Hispanics, we tend to vote Democrat, unfortunately. And I've said it in previous videos how we're lied to from a very early age, and we're told that Democrats are for minorities and Republicans are all racist. That was what I grew up hearing. And so I'm sure that as these immigrants come over, they're told, oh, I know the legal immigrants are told that, but I'm sure the illegal ones are told the exact same thing, right? And more so, they'll be thankful for the Democratic Party for letting them in, so they'll more than likely tend to vote Democrat as well, even though the traditional values that they have oppose the progressive movement of the left. But let's get into some more videos about what this is.
America is and always has been a nation of immigrants.
I agree.
Throughout our history, immigrants have come to our shores in wave after wave.
I agree.
From every corner of the globe. Every one of us, unless we're Native American, has an ancestor who was born somewhere else. That's what makes America special. That's what makes us strong. The basic idea of welcoming immigrants to our shores is central to our way of life. It is in our DNA.
I couldn't agree with Barack Obama more in that statement. But again, there's a difference between legal immigration, which we should all be for, and illegal immigration, which none of us should be for, because I cannot go to another country illegally, just walk right past the border and be A-okay. I'll more than likely get arrested. I'll more than likely be jailed. And who knows what can happen during the legal process from there. As a Hispanic myself, I cannot go to my father's native country without proper documentation. Therefore, no one should be able to come into my country illegally. Nobody should be able to come into this country without the proper steps and the proper process. Now, I get it. There are bad governments out there, and I get political. There's politics behind these governments, these communistic governments like Cuba and Venezuela, right, where they would be refugees, essentially. But that's pretty much it. Every other country, Latin country, is a Democrat and is a democracy and has a democratic process of elections. We're not responsible for the corruption that goes on in those countries. We can't be. And so therefore, those asylum seekers from those countries, like Guatemala, Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, those countries do not fit that bill. They don't have communism in those countries, at least not yet. The push is there, but they're not there yet. So we can actually see here, again, the mixing of the words, right, between immigrant or migrant and legal and versus illegal immigration. Let's take a look at another video and see what we've got going on.
Immigration as a gift. Watch.
Guess what? They're the reason why. The legal as well as undocumented are the reason why our society is functioning, the reason why our economy is growing. We don't talk about that. We stand up and act like it's a burden. It is not a burden. It's a gift.
It's a gift, says a man who has worked in a public job his entire life.
So it's a gift. It's a gift. Again, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. Nobody's opposed to legal migration. I've never met somebody in my almost 44 years. I have never met somebody who's against legal migration. Now, I have heard, and I think Tucker Carlson did make a point, is how much legal immigration do we want to absorb? Do we want to take in? I mean, we let legally 1 million immigrants a year in. We have, lottery and so on and so forth. And there are these different ways to come here legally. And to be quite honest with you, again, as a Hispanic, there's a huge difference between the migrants that came over back then to the migrants that are coming over today. Again, not all of them, but there are some of them that are just simply coming for the benefits. I know that because unfortunately I've had a family member do that. They came over, they're getting Section 8 and they're getting food stamps and for him and his wife. And meanwhile, I got to work 40 hours and I was born here and I got to support my kids and so on and so forth, right? So I mean, I'm not for it. I'm not for it. I'm not for that. Why should I have to work and get, a lot of money taken out from taxes while somebody comes over and they get taken care of? I mean, yeah, they're not living at the same lifestyle that I'm living, but some people are okay with that. Some people, I mean, heck, it's much better to live here at the basic level than in Cuba, right? I don't think Cuba has a basic level. Most people are dirt poor, or if you're with the Cuban regime, you're then rich, right? So anyhow, so we've already mentioned why it's important to secure the border. You've got criminals. The cartels are running amok. Fentanyl's coming over unchecked, and we know that because in certain cases, Border Patrol is capturing them, Border Patrol is stopping them, but in many cases they're not. There's just too many. The system is overwhelmed. You've got human trafficking, right? I mean, that to me, one of the things that I find detestable is trafficking of humans, specifically when it comes to women and children. It's absolutely disgusting. I can't stand it. And I wish that our government would do a lot more towards that specific subject matter. And it's on both sides of the aisle, right? Both Republicans and Democrats should do more against human trafficking, but we'll leave that for another segment. There's even been reports where potential terrorists who have been on the terrorist watch list have tried to make it through. Border Patrol has captured some of them, but again, how many have not been captured because the system is just so overwhelmed? It's very, very concerning. In addition to that, this is all political exploitation. Again, we've just mentioned how a vast majority of Hispanics do tend to vote Democrat. It's by a large margin, right? I would say maybe, I'm going to guess here, and I would say 70, 80 percentile, somewhere around there, right? So it's not by a little bit, it's by a lot. And the left knows this. That's why they're allowing it. That's why they're not enforcing the laws that need to be enforced on these border states. They're playing politics from years ago. They're playing politics.
These individuals will be resettled across the country, just like generations of newcomers throughout our history. They will have the opportunity to enrich the fabric of our nation, and I would ask all Americans to welcome them.
We are an immigrant nation. I mean, we say that, but people act like they don't believe it. We are an immigrant nation, and that is our strength.
There are those of us who will fight for you and your rights every day. My message to them is do not live in fear.
So it's pretty interesting. Right? Again, we can really easily see the deception going on here, right? They're talking about immigration when the subject matter is actually illegal immigration. And again, it's to drive the narrative that the right is racist and that we're full of white supremacists, and it's all a bunch of baloney. They want to trigger people's emotions, right? I think we all know how the left reacts emotionally, and heck, we're not exempt from that, right? We see things, we react. I mean, I'll be honest with you, 9/11 is a good example of that. We all reacted emotionally, right? And rightfully so. But even more so, I think the left is prone to be more emotional. They'll see things, even though they see other things that they should be questioning, they can't because of the emotion. Look, okay, Trump derangement syndrome is a good example of that. I mean, we're still here years later trying to convince them that, look, the left is lying to you, the left is lying to you, the left is lying to you, and they don't see it. Why? Because they're so emotionally embedded in this particular matter. They're playing politics from years ago. They're playing politics. How do we know they're playing politics? Let's take a look. We can very easily see back in 2017, a number of leftist blue cities and blue states declared themselves sanctuary cities or sanctuary states, again, to go against the tough immigration laws that Trump was bringing forth, right? With his attorney general at the time, Jeff Sessions, he had a zero tolerance policy that went out, right? And so in order to push back against that, instead of saying, hey, this is really good, we're getting the border under control. No, what did they do? They said, we're not going to enforce that. We're not going to call ICE. We're going to harbor these people. We're going to give them sanctuary, right? So that's essentially what happened. And we have the proof. We have the video. We can always go back and take a look.
Well, I can't say it any more clearly of what it means for Washington, D.C. to be a sanctuary city.
We have your back in New York City. We will protect you. We will not ask your documentation status.
San Francisco stands behind our sanctuary city policy.
Los Angeles and other big cities have always been a place that are welcome to refugees, to asylum seekers, and to immigrants.
This is a city that for 150 years has been a city of welcome for immigrants from people all over the world.
So passionate. So as you can see, liberals spent years bragging about their cities being open for illegals. And now they're begging the federal government for aid and reinforcement. That's the same kind of help that the border towns, hell, the entire state of Texas have been asking for years. But when Republicans asked for help at the border, they were labeled as racist, xenophobic. They didn't send the cavalry for the Republicans. Now, this is just the latest example of Democrats ignoring the issue until it finally lands in their own backyard.
So how else can we determine that they've been playing politics? Well, it was just last week where Kamala Harris was saying that the border was secure, and the White House at the beginning, remember, they refused to even acknowledge that there was a crisis. They continued to evade that question. They continued to evade that fact, despite the fact that there was video coming out, despite the fact that there was people from Border Patrol and mayors and governors from borderline states. They refused to believe these people that there was an issue going on. Listen, it's so much so, and we covered this in our first episode, the flood of illegal immigration is so great that Mayra Flores was able to win a district that was heavily guarded by the Democrats. She was able to win because she ran on a secure border type policy, right? It was part of her message. It was just one aspect of it. But she was able to do that, right? Because regardless of whatever the left thinks, you know, legal Hispanic immigrants that went through the actual process don't want illegal immigration. They don't like illegal immigration. Why? Because they had to suffer and go through the things that they had to and pay their dues and their attorneys and wait in line and so on and so on. They did everything the right way. So why should somebody come in here, do it the wrong way, and get to cut in front of the line? That's wrong. So you'll find more Hispanics that will oppose illegal immigration. And I think the left is not really paying attention to that. I really don't think they care, to be honest with you. They figure, well, 2 million at this point, we'll throw in another million and so on, and it's a numbers game right at that point. What else have we seen from this administration to let us know that this particular matter is 100% political? Well, just a couple of weeks ago, it was seen that Border Patrol was opening up a fence. So what happened, if I'm not mistaken, in Texas, they fenced off a particular area to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in. And Border Patrol came in and unlocked it. So let's check out that video.
For years, we have told you that walls work, and we've got graphic proof of just that. So just imagine there's a wall on our southern border, right? And the migrants are on the Mexican side, and they cannot get through to the American side. And it was not until our man down on the border, Bill Malugin, tweeted this out yesterday that we saw that we now know how some of the migrants are getting in, even though the walls are working. Look at this.
Yeah, the walls work and the gates work if the locks stay on them. But look at this video. So the Fox News was down there, and we witnessed the National Guard locking this gate at the border on private property at a major crossing area in Eagle Pass to deny the illegals to come into or further into the U.S. Then Fox News witnesses the Border Patrol agents come along with a key. They open the gate to illegals that are standing outside of the gate and allowed them to go through for processing, all with the Texas National Guard just standing there watching.
Of course, Greg Abbott not very happy about this, writing the following in response: unbelievable. While Texas secures the border, the federal government is enabling illegal immigration. Biden's open border policies cause this crisis. The federal government must do its job and fix.
So there we basically saw exactly that. The National Guard was there. The fence was closed. Here comes Border Patrol. They open it up. Obviously, Border Patrol trumps the National Guard in that particular instance. So the National Guard was left there to do nothing, and they opened up and let all these illegal immigrants in. Again, it's plain politics, because to restate it, Kamala Harris said that the border is secure. I think the White House press secretary also said it. As a matter of fact, she was actually having a debate not too long ago with Peter Doocy, saying they're not just walking over. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. They are walking over. And so we can see that clear as day right there. But again, they refuse to acknowledge it. They refuse to show it. Why? Because they want to keep the left blind to this scenario and this situation. So let's backtrack a little bit again. I mentioned earlier before that the mayors and certain states and certain cities had declared themselves to be sanctuary cities. Let's take a look, so that way no one can say, well, that's inaccurate. Nobody ever said that. But so let's prove that.
I can't say it any more clearly of what it means for Washington, D.C. to be a sanctuary city.
But now that her city's flooded with migrants, she's begging for the National Guard.
We need the federal government to be involved. So I've asked for the deployment of the Guard, as long as we need the Guard to deal with the humanitarian crisis that we expect to escalate. The number of people crossing the border seeking asylum, we expect to only go up.
But she's not the only one. New York Mayor Eric Adams is begging for federal help, too, as hundreds of migrants have overwhelmed the city's homeless shelters. We spoke to a few of them last month.
So there we have Mayor of D.C., and she's not alone. We know that the mayor of Chicago has done it, the mayor of New York City, LA, etc. Right? There's all of these huge major cities that have leftists have come out and declared themselves sanctuary cities. Okay, so the politics, I think we've already established, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Some Republican governors have come up with a tactic, a political tactic, it is, to bring the message to the forefront. A lot of these people, they're hypocrites, right? Because they're not on the border, so they don't see it every day. They may see a couple here and there, but nothing to really overwhelm the system the way that it is over on the border states. So what takes place is you got some governors from certain red states that have begun to transport illegal immigrants into these sanctuary cities. Well, listen, you guys said that you guys would take them in. Well, here you go. We're overwhelmed. We can't handle it. We didn't want it to begin with. We've been asking for help, and we've been asking for the federal government to do their job. But since they're not doing it, and you said you guys would take them in, and you guys declared yourself since 2017 sanctuary cities, well, here you go. Do what you said you were going to do. Now, the left is all hysterical about that right now, and we'll get into that. But what I want to do is I want to expose the double standards and their hypocrisy, right? Because since last year, reports have come out that the Biden administration has been flying illegal immigrants into various different states throughout the country. No one's said a word about that. No one said how inhumane that is. No one has said how horrible. No one has compared Biden from the left to Hitler for doing that, for transporting those illegal immigrants. As a matter of fact, they've applauded it, or they've ignored it, or they've denied it, or they've turned the cheek, right? One or the other. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on there.
Now, the charter flights from Texas reportedly underway since August, with some of the planes touching down in Florida and dropping off dozens of migrants there before heading to New York to resettle the others, busing them to nearby locations. This comes as leaked documents detail the staggering catch and release numbers under the Biden administration, showing that since the beginning of August, tens of thousands of migrants have been released into the U.S. with little or no oversight. All this as we, as usual, still await the official border numbers from last month. And Senator Ted Cruz says it's clear the president's policies are responsible for the border crisis.
So you can see right there how the report came out. There's video to go along with it. Maybe we can show the video as we go through it. But it's really clear that Biden has been transporting illegal immigrants via plane to different states. And I imagine a lot of those are more than likely going to be red states, or maybe red counties, or so on and so forth, right? But here's the interesting part. So because of the fact that Texas has not received the federal help that it has requested, that it needs, Governor Greg Abbott has come up with a very interesting way of finding a solution, maybe, or at least bringing attention and saying, listen, we can't handle this. You said you could, so here you go. So here's the interesting part. Governor Greg Abbott started shipping or transporting migrants over to these major cities like Washington, D.C., New York City, and Chicago. So here we are. We'll go ahead and get into that.
We are sending them to the United States Capitol, where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has a new plan to handle the growing surge of migrants that are entering his state illegally and overwhelming local communities. You see it reported here every day. In addition to other measures, the state will begin sending migrants on charter buses directly to Washington, dropping them off at the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Governor Abbott joins us now from Austin, Texas, and I know that you are incredibly frustrated that the federal government is not doing its job in order to protect the border. You've committed state resources to do that.
So the left is obviously outraged. The left has been exposed. Each mayor, after declaring themselves a sanctuary city, has come out and essentially complained. They've requested help from the federal government. They've obviously demonized these governors. It's not just the one from Texas; it's also the one from Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. They have requested help from the federal government. They've been denied for the most part. They say that they don't have the resources. That the resources that they do have they've been overwhelmed, right, because of the busing. Now, here's the interesting part. I mean, they're getting busloads in comparison to the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands that the border states get. It's like it's a handful in comparison. It's a drop in the bucket, and they're complaining. Now, some people might say, well, they're not equipped to handle that. Okay, well, what makes you think the border states are equipped to handle tens of thousands into the millions? It's unrealistic. It's unrealistic because it's not feasible. It's financially not feasible to maintain and to welcome or to bring in or allow illegal immigrants to flood and come in unbound and unchecked. It's unrealistic. It's wrong in many cases. Not only is it wrong to people here in the United States, it's wrong to legal immigrants, and it's also wrong to the illegal immigrant who maybe you have some that obviously make it, but what about the ones that don't? What about the ones that die trying? What about the ones that drown crossing that river? What about the children that drown during that, or get kidnapped, or get sexually abused, and so on and so forth? Right? That it's not fair to them. You incentivize them by doing that. By allowing illegal immigrants to come in with an open border, you incentivize more to come in. You incentivize, all you're doing is really making the cartels richer. right? Listen, let's take politics out for a minute, because when politics are involved, things get convoluted. If I go in and I want to live a better life, so I go rob a bank, does that make it okay? No. And if I do go rob a bank and I get caught and you don't prosecute me, you're going to incentivize either me or other people like me to go keep robbing a bank, which is in part why we have the high crime rates that we have going across our country right now, because people are committing crimes. And unfortunately, you've got these woke DAs. They're in these leftist states that really are not prosecuting them. We'll leave that for another segment, because I don't want to go off on it. But again, if you do not have consequences to breaking the law, more people will be emboldened to break the law, and that's exactly what's going on with this particular scenario. Now, what's interesting is, here's the interesting part. Ron DeSantis, my governor, who I absolutely love, he did something really interesting. About 9 months ago, he was giving a speech, and he, I don't know, I don't think it was a threat, obviously, but he toted it out there, and he said, listen, if these illegal immigrants were to show up in Martha's Vineyard, this issue would be resolved. That's pretty interesting based on what's happened these past couple of days. But let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
What we don't want is incentivizing people to be coming to the state illegally. And we also, in yesterday's budget, I put in $8 million for us to be able to transport people illegally out of the state of Florida. Now, we had mentioned, I said, it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it is true. If you sent to Delaware or Martha's Vineyard or some of these places, that border would be secure the next day. That border would be secure. But instead, they're imposing the results of their policies on states like Florida, who they love to hate or whatever.
Amazing, because this man actually followed through. Last week, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday of last week, he actually sent a plane full of illegal immigrants, 50 illegal immigrants, over to Martha's Vineyard. Amazing. But here's what's amazing. It's not the fact that it's two-part. It's that he said this 9 months ago and did it, right? So that's not amazing part number one. But then amazing part number two is how the left reacted, and it's essentially how DeSantis just finished describing. He's like, listen, if they end up in Martha's Vineyard, this thing will be taken care of. Well, here's what it does. It really does expose, number one, the problem, that there is a problem. It exposes what the states, the border states go through, right? It exposes how the left really feels about us. Because listen, if you're a sanctuary city and you're saying, hey, we welcome illegal immigrants, come on in. And it shouldn't be a problem when they show up, right? You should be taking care of them, right? I mean, think about this. Let's say you're at work and you ask your boss, or you tell your boss, hey, I have capacity to take on a little bit more, help out the rest of the team, and so on and so forth. So I have capacity to take on more work. And you're surprised when your boss gives you more work. Are you going to complain? I mean, that's pretty dumb, right? And so that's exactly what happens. So let's check out and let's see the response to the migrants showing up. How did the left react to that? Let's take a look.
I can tell you they are not angry at Ron DeSantis. They're actually thanking him for having brought them to Martha's Vineyard.
Well, yeah, they're not angry at Ron DeSantis. They're thanking him for bringing them to Martha's Vineyard. Why wouldn't they? Because they got a free flight to the vineyard. And at first, it seemed like they had every reason to be grateful because the people of the town appeared to welcome them. As they walked in from the airport, 3.5 miles, they saw signs like this one. On Martha's Vineyard, the sign reads, "We stand with immigrants, with refugees. All are welcome here. Hate has no business here." In other words, no one who worked for Donald Trump can go to Martha's Vineyard. But they didn't know that there was a caveat to that welcome. Hate is not welcome here. Okay. Then on Thursday, an elected official on the island gave the migrants even more reason for hope. And we're quoting, "This is a community rallying to support immigrant children and families," said State Representative Dylan Fernandez. "It's the best of America." And then to prove his point that Martha's Vineyard will do whatever it can for immigrants, Fernandez uploaded this picture onto social media because, of course, everything is a social media opportunity. The picture shows several Venezuelans gathered on a porch. One of them is wearing a shirt celebrating Ruth Bader Ginsburg, notorious RBG, it says. Clearly he got that from a local. But then you look closely and you ask yourself, are these people really welcome on Martha's Vineyard? What are they eating? There's no kale or brie for the Venezuelans. No, instead they got corn pops, Fruit Loops, Rice Krispies, with a side of paper plates and napkins. You gotta wonder what the Venezuelans thought of that. This seems like a nice place. The food is garbage. It's less healthy than the crap we eat in Caracas. Way worse. Why are they feeding us this stuff? Corn Pops, really? Fruit Loops? What message are you sending? And of course the message was really clear. The serfs eat garbage. I think, what do they eat? What does your average Venezuelan eat? I don't know. Fruit Loops? Venezuelans love Fruit Loops. So the Venezuelans may have gotten a hint that they weren't really welcome there. But it was hard to know. The community seemed to be rallying behind them. But then, if there was any doubt in the morning, it was gone by afternoon because the message changed very quickly. And the new message was, get the hell out of here, brown people.
The difficult challenges are we have, at some point in time, they have to move from here to somewhere else, right? We don't have the services to take care of 50 immigrants, and we certainly don't have housing. We're in a housing crisis as we are on this island, and so we can't house everyone here that lives here and works here. We don't have housing for 50 more people.
We don't have housing for 50 more people. Says the lady on an island that literally has more than 100,000 empty beds at that exact moment.
I don't know what to say. I mean, am I surprised? No, because I honestly I've experienced this, right? I've been told from the left to go back to my country, even though I was born here, ignorant that they are. Why? Because I'm a right winger, right? I'm a MAGA supporter, and so I don't understand how you can say that you are for minorities when you're being racist and telling someone who's naturally born here to go back to their country. I mean, again, logic really falls short for these people. But in addition to this particular lady, I don't know who she is. I don't know what involvement she has there, but the sentiment was pretty much clear in that area. And we know this because within 44 hours, Democrats called the National Guard and had those migrants moved to Cape Cod. That is unbelievable. They actually, within 44 hours, they had these immigrants removed by the National Guard. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. But this is really how leftists really fit. Listen, I had this conversation with a friend of mine. I went to the show. He came on mine, and we talked about it on the woke episode, woke culture episode. We talked about how if you listen close enough, the left will reveal how they truly feel about minorities.
On The View today with guest co-host Kelly Osbourne.
There are a lot of Latinos here in this country that do agree that the immigration problem is a problem and it does need to be addressed and it does need to be fixed.
Interesting.
But making those comments, those racist comments, do not help.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that, you know what I mean? Like when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA, they always
but
they
Latinos are not only the only people
I didn't mean it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
Right? And so here's what I can show you. Keep clicking the wrong buttons. This is a tweet. What's this? Here's a tweet from NBC. Now this tweet got taken down pretty quick. And it states, Florida Governor DeSantis sending asylum seekers to Martha's Vineyard is like me taking my trash out and just driving to different areas where I live and just throwing my trash there. Wow. A founding member of a foundation which helps refugees says. That's a quote. Obviously, it got taken down. So imagine being compared. He's comparing Hispanics. He's comparing immigrants, illegal immigrants, however you want to classify it. He's describing people as trash and garbage. That is disgusting. And that's exactly how these people felt, because they got rid of them in 44 hours. You don't get people that you welcome. You don't kick them out in that short amount of time, right? I mean, how long have we been dealing with illegal immigration? How long have these border towns been calling for help? Let's just go back from the Biden administration. We're now over a year and a half into this administration. The border states have been asking for help and they haven't gotten it. And so here's these people, and they go and they kick them out in 44 hours. So, but, you know, the media is always working to favor their guy. You know how CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, you know how they all work. What they did to make it not look so bad is they came up with this beautiful headline. CNN, they enriched us. Migrants' 44-hour visit leaves indelible mark on Martha's Vineyard. It's so sweet. It's so romantic. It's so poetic. Yet they couldn't stay there. Yet they got to leave. Yet they kicked them out. Right? I mean, it's utter hypocrisy, fully exposed. Ron DeSantis is a genius. I know he's getting a lot of backlash from the left, naturally. I posted this not too long ago on my personal Facebook page. Listen, if they demonize Trump, they'll demonize anybody. And if you think that maybe we shouldn't vote for Trump in 2024 because he's too toxic, or because he's bold, or he's arrogant, or whatever, or he shoots himself in the foot, what makes you think they're not going to demonize the next candidate? Because some people like Ron DeSantis because he has a different demeanor. And I'll agree, he does. He hits back like Trump, but in a much different way. You know, some people may say it's more refined, more professional. I don't know how to describe it, but the reality is that he does have a different tone. But that's not going to matter to the left. They're going to try and demonize him however they can, and they've already done it. They've already started to compare this movement and compare it to Hitler, because, right, sending 50 immigrants to a luxurious island like Martha's Vineyard is the same as killing 6 million Jews. That's totally the same, very comparable, right? These people are insane. They'll demonize anybody. Just remember, John McCain, when he ran, was a white supremacist up until he became a never-Trumper, or he came out as a never-Trumper. Mitt Romney, the rat Mitt Romney, was a misogynist when he ran for president, right? And until he became a never-Trumper, or he came out as a never-Trumper, then he was the left's heroes, right? The left does this all the time. That's their go-to card. So make no mistake, they're going to do the same thing with Ron DeSantis, and they already are. So it's just ridiculous. But now here's the interesting part. You would think that these people are they actually want to help these people at the very least. They would want to do something good for them. Let's take a look here. Let's see how their help was.
Of open-hearted individuals that view these migrants as people. To agree with that. They did do one thing, though. They set up a GoFundMe, which they called an urgent plea. And they told us this was a way to help the migrants. And we're quoting from GoFundMe. Martha's Vineyard is a community of open-hearted individuals that view these migrants as people, not political pawns or trash. However, continuing the quote, the island is a resort community with only 20,000 year-round residents, and it already faces a shortage of affordable housing and off-season jobs. Oh, it's just not rich enough. They don't have enough beds. It's one of the richest places in the United States, and it has more available beds than any other place, probably in North America right now. But it's just, they can't swing it. But you can do your part by donating to the fund. And by donating the fund, they'll help the migrants. Well, a lot of people believed it. The fund raised $40,000. But here's the best part. You're going to love this part. How much of that money is going to the migrants? Oh, none. None. An update on the fundraising page reveals that the funds will instead go toward, and we're quoting, building up a reserve to assist situations like this in the future, rather than directly helping this group of migrants in their situation. In other words, Martha's Vineyard is building itself an endowment, just like Harvard. Oh, it's amazing.
Unbelievable. unbelievable that these people, number one, it's one of the richest places in the United States, and they claim that they don't have the capacity to help 50 migrants. They claim that there's no possible way that they can help these people out. They just don't have it. They're just not able to. Are you kidding me? Are you for real? These people live in luxury mansions and they don't have the capacity. It's disgusting. And to know that they set up a GoFundMe in pretense of helping the migrants, but really they're not, because it's not going towards them. It's going to go in the event that a future scenario like this happens. It's absolutely disgusting. And again, it shows and reveals the hypocrisy of the left and how they really feel about immigrants. They don't like us. They don't like them. They don't like Hispanics. We know this, right? And it's very clear here. They claim to do it, but when push comes to shove, they don't. Listen, listen, we know this. We on the right, we know this. Remember when Trump did a travel ban against 5 terroristic, 5 Muslim majority countries that were on the terrorist list, whatever, right? People couldn't travel from those specific 5 countries. The left demonized that and called that the anti-Muslim bill or something like that. And it's no, because there's more Muslim countries than just 5 in the world, and you can come from those. It was just these specific 5. I saw a video, I can't find it anymore, but I saw a video where the protesters against this travel ban were over in, I don't know if it was LaGuardia or something like that, over in New York City. They were protesting, right, that travel ban. And so some person, some YouTuber or whatever, he went out there, he made pretend like he was with them, right? He was talking about, yeah, this travel ban is horrible, and we need to take in these refugees, these Syrian refugees, or whatever the case. We need to take more of them, and so on and so forth. And the other people are like, yeah, this guy's a racist, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we need to help out, and so on. He's like, awesome. Listen, I'm so glad that you feel like that. I've got here a document, or a document. I want you to sign up to help out these refugees, to help out these immigrants. Sign right here. Sign your name right here and commit to taking in one of these immigrants into your house. Every single person did not sign it. Every single person that was there protesting that travel ban did not want to take in one of these migrants and help them out on their own. They're full of crap. They're full of crap. Listen, the reality of illegal immigration is at the forefront. Illegal immigration is, number one, dangerous. It's dangerous on a personal level because, again, we don't know who's coming through the border. We don't know what types of people. Yes, a good amount of them just want to come here for a better life and work. That's great. But there are going to be those that are hidden within those groups that don't have that same intent. They come over, they want to commit more crimes, they want to, drugs, rape. We've had people come over that have been criminals in their home country, and yet they're crossing over, right? And again, unimpeded. It's on a personal level. We also have it on a country level, right? Why? Because as mentioned before, some terrorists have been coming over, and what do you think they're going to do, right? They're going to wait until the moment to strike. But their first mission was to get through the border. And if we've got an open border, yeah, we may have caught, I don't know, I think the report said about 80 of them have come through, or potentially 80 of them have come through. Yeah, maybe we caught 40. What about the other 40, right? Even if you let one through, how much damage can one terrorist do? It'll be a good amount. It'll be a good amount. Unchecked immigration depletes resources. We see that, according to them, they didn't have the resources. But I'm sure that if they did have the resources, you have to keep having the resources. You have to keep maintaining it. And to be quite frank, we cannot sustain this type of migration. It's just not feasible, and it's not right. It's not right. Again, we've already talked about it's not right to legal immigrants. There are people right now online waiting for their process. Right? They've paid their dues. They've paid, I don't know, their attorney fees. I don't know, $10,000. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know. But they're paying their dues. That's the point. And no one should be paying a cartel or a coyote to bring them up and cross them over and pay a fraction of it and dangerously, right? What this movement shows is the left is okay with illegal immigration as long as it doesn't affect them. I said it in the first video. Illegal immigration, it hurts minority communities. These illegal immigrants, they're not going to go to middle class and upper class neighborhoods that have gated communities. They're not going to go there. They're going to go to el barrio. They're going to go to the hood. They're going to go to the ghetto, right? And if they do commit crimes, who are they going to commit crimes against? Other minorities, other Hispanics, other blacks, other whatever, other Asians, right? So it's not good for anybody. We need to protect the border. We need to enforce the laws. If I'm required to follow every federal law and I'm a native-born U.S. citizen, everybody else should have to follow it, including foreigners, whether they're here legally, whether they're here on some type of tourist visa or something like that, or whether they're here, whatever. There needs to be a legal process. So we need to get control of the border, and I hope that the Republicans can really, they need to stop being scared about this issue. I know that Republicans are scared touching this issue because the minute you are against illegal immigration, the left loves to call you a racist. Stop being afraid. Stop backing down to these people. It's a trick. It's a political trick, and it's been working on you. Every single Republican should be for border protection. Finish the darn wall. Guys, that's pretty much it. That's what I have for you. Thank you once again for joining me tonight. Everybody, take care. God bless. Love America. Till next time.